we are Jon and Nicky Beardon, and as you've mentioned, we are parents of some children, 2 of which are here. So some of you will know Grace, and some of you will know Sam. Is Sam in the room, or is he out with the youth somewhere?
He deliberately said he wanted to be out.
Yeah, great. So, I went to school in Kent, in Ramsgate, so we went down to drive around Thanet yesterday afternoon for a bit of fun. We met at university in Reading, and we moved to Norfolk in the year 2000 to get involved in the church planting mission there. And we moved to Dereham in 2001, planted a church there, which is where we're still based. They're doing a baptism this morning, praise God, so that's great news. So that's a little bit about us. In terms of kind of what we do, that's probably worth saying as well. So Nicky's a full-time primary school teacher, has a particularly demanding job, as you will know if you know teachers. I wear many different hats in the relational mission family, so I'll introduce you to some of my hats. I am an elder in the local church. I handed over the team leader role a couple of years ago to free me up for some other things. So some of the other things that I do is I'm one of the relational mission, I'm chair of the relational mission trustees. I'm also one of the relational mission community leaders alongside Martin and some of our friends. So we kind of look after smaller groups of churches. And I also have a sort of a curious kind of role working very closely with Mike and Maurice and Steph, the 3 sort of apostolic leaders in relational mission. And my role is to try and coordinate what goes on across the movement. And so I make it my goal that every member of every church in the whole of relational mission and every leader knows where they're meant to be and when. So that is my goal. It's not an easy one to hit,
it's like
but
herding
I try.
Cats, isn't it?
It is like herding cats and the sending of many emails, as Martin will know, and some of you may know that as well. But we're here to also tell you about GoWest. So.
Excellent. Well, what a beautiful segue there, Jon. Why don't you tell us a bit about what is the GoWest initiative and what are you hoping to see come from it?
Okay, so not earlier this year, last year, January, February time, God spoke to us, first of all to Jon and then to me, about a new initiative. So sort of spearheading a new initiative into the west of England. And breaking out really from the east, because relational mission is quite sort of straitjacketed really in the east, and we just felt that God was calling us to move out to the west. And first of all, God said Bath, and then as soon as he said Bath, he said think west, not Bath. And we honestly believe that God is going to start a new sort of move in the west, still relational mission, but doing what we have seen happen in Norfolk and other places, but doing it in the West. So we're in contact with some people in Wales. We're in contact with people in Scotland, because obviously Scotland is West too. People down in the West Country. And so that's where we're at really. We've got a lunch this afternoon, and if you want to hear a little bit more, then do come to that. And I just want to draw your attention to this verse, because we feel like God has spoken to us through Isaiah 43. And God's been saying this morning very much about lifting our eyes and looking to him. And this verse really spoke to us when God first spoke last year. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? And really, the last year has been a year of seeing signs. It's almost like God has been laying a breadcrumb trail. And it's like we have seen the most extraordinary sort of signs. And God spoke very early on through a picture of a snowball. And he said, pray into this snowball, getting bigger and gathering. And that is really what we have seen happen. So we've already got, is it 14? 14 people who definitely are going to be moving to Bath. Last weekend, we took a team down. There were 38 people, some of whom came from here. We had the most amazing time. And just to show you God's kindness, we were in the Airbnb, and we just noticed a Good News Bible on the shelf. It's like, I'm curious. So we picked it up, And lo and behold, there was a bookmark in there. Guess where the bookmark was? Isaiah 43. And that is just, God didn't have to do that. You know, we are convinced that God has called us. It's like we didn't need God to sort of say, this is what we want you to do. But isn't our God just so kind and so loving that, I mean, it just stirred our faith and it stirred the people that we were with's faith as well. What a glorious thing for him to do at the beginning of our Bath weekend. Absolutely wonderful.
Wow, that's amazing. So GoWest initiative then is this kind of first part is you as a couple and with a team are moving to Bath to plant a relational mission church. And then the second is that we're also believing that there's going to be more churches in the West, which obviously for us in Canterbury, pretty much everything in the UK is, you can count as West, right? Wherever you're going, there's a West involved in that move. So if you're thinking of moving anywhere other than Dover way, I guess, then you're kind of going west anyway. So do make sure you're talking to these guys and involved. When do you hope to move to Bath? When, kind of that first part of this, when are you hoping to go?
So our youngest, Ben, is doing his A-levels this summer, and we really hope and trust that we're going to be moving July, August this year. I'm a teacher, so it would be really convenient if I could have a job by September. But also, the two people that signed up, first of all, were ID students who said, we'd like to come to Bath. So we've already got 2 ID students, one of whom is going to be living with us. We don't have a house yet, but we're really trusting that God's going to provide a house with enough bedrooms so that we can have some young people living with us. Because what we've really found is that this is capturing the hearts of young people. And so we really believe that this is about sowing into sons and daughters and actually seeing younger generation capture a heart for church planting and seeing them grow into leadership. Because seeing lots of churches established, as you know, you need leaders for that. So we're really trusting that God's going to give us future leaders, but also people who are in leadership now, so that they can come with us, start in Bath, and then we'll sort of send you out wherever God kind of calls you to go. So we're hoping to move this summer. That would be wonderful.
Great, brilliant. And so I suppose, John, question for you. Obviously, it was at the Call conference where you kind of unveiled this new initiative. What are the questions that people have been asking you since then?
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that there have been 2 questions that have been coming up as we've gone around speaking to churches, and they're fair questions that people are asking. The first one is, well, why do we need to plant more churches? Because there are Christian churches in every place, every community you go to in the UK. And so it's important, even if we've thought about it before, to think about that afresh. Why are we planting churches? And there are several reasons. The first reason is that, and there isn't time to go into detail on it now, but fundamentally, when we look in the New Testament, Jesus gave the disciples the Great Commission, and they instinctively, unswervingly went and preached the gospel, and everywhere they went started churches. It is just like the model for mission. It's what you do. That's the first fundamental thing to say. The second fundamental thing to say is that while there are Christian churches all over the UK, on the other hand, at least 95% of the population are not reached at the moment. The need is desperate. We are nowhere close to a saturation of church planting in this country. And you only have to go and travel to nations in Africa, for example, where revivals come. And you can go down a row of shops. There's a church, there's a church, there's a church. We're nowhere near it. The need is desperate. Canterbury needs more churches. Everywhere needs more churches. So the need speaks for itself. The third thing to say is that new churches, this is pragmatic really, but new churches are particularly good at reaching new communities that have moved into areas. They're particularly good at helping new leaders to emerge. They're particularly good at getting people to kind of step up in faith. And we're seeing that in one of the churches we're planting just down the road from us in Dereham. I just think of a lady called Jess, and I just see how by her getting involved there, she's gone from being this very shy person who was just like not saying anything to now taking leadership and responsibility. It's amazing, and it's a church plant that's created that opportunity. So there's more we could say on that, but that's a really important thing to be clear on, why we desperately need more churches. Don't break pace for a moment in our commitment to church planting mission. The second question that people have been asking me is, well, why would we plant churches in a community where there is already a New Frontiers church? And that is also a valid question, and it's good to face it. And I refer you back to my first answer, because in fact all of those points still apply, because the mission is so vast and so great. But it's also important for us to understand that back in 2011, what was New Frontiers changed in a really big way. So New Frontiers was a family of churches. In 2011, it became a group of apostolic leaders working together, each with their own family of churches. And they agreed in 2011, no territoriality, nowhere is off limits, the world is everyone's parish. Plant anywhere and everywhere you can, but just play nicely. And so we're going into the West, and there are New Frontiers churches from different spheres there. And so we are seeking to make friends with them, partner with them, like we will do with all the other evangelical churches in those places. And to be honest, the New Frontiers ones, it's really easy to pray with, because you can just take so much for granted in terms of what we are all about. But there's room, there's need. And the other thing to say about that is that as New Frontiers has sort of gone through this period of time, there are deep ministry partnerships, relationships that God has forged amongst us. So we're part of the relational mission family. We're connected to apostles and prophets and brothers and sisters. We've got history of working together. We are not just going off on a Jon and Nicky mission. We are going as part of the family, cared for, loved. I mean, you've welcomed us here this morning to speak to you. So that family history is incredibly important and relevant to this. So there's probably more that I could say, but I bet we've overrun our time badly.
Maybe a little, but that's all right. Last question, and you've got 1 minute to answer this one. Okay, how can people support you? I guess that's probably the third question you get asked all the time, right?
Yeah, so we are looking for prayer. And Lord, I pray for your Spirit to move in this moment. Pray for yourselves. Is God calling you to go west? And we've already identified that's almost the entirety of the UK. Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, the whole of England. So we're starting in Bath, but we've already got connections into Scotland and Wales. It's crazy, isn't it? So pray for yourselves. Please pray for us. Pray for the team. So all those 14 adults or 12 adults, 2 children, they all need homes. Most of them need jobs. Some of them need schools. So we're all on the move. One of them needs a visa because she's got to come all the way from the US to join us. So we need some help with that. So pray for the team. Please could you pray for the first 10 churches to be established in the GoWest initiative? And then could you pray for the money that we're going to need for it all to happen? And then last of all, you're probably just leading into this. Please come along to the lunch, even if you've not booked in, so that we can spend a bit more time with you. Please get in contact with us. If you can't come to the lunch, you've got our contact details here. We'd love to hear from I'm thinking of moving to place X in 3 years' time, or my children are over there. We're getting more and more of that. We want to hear, and you might say, I'm interested in this place. And we might say, well, that's interesting because 3 other people have said the same thing too. We're getting that. So don't hold back. Communicate with us.